The inflation in the last couple of months really drives me nuts. As you probably already know, Canadian inflation accelerated to the highest point in nearly 4 decades, to a whole 7.7% in May from a year before, which is quite likely to keep on growing in the summer, reaching 8% and beyond. As young people, many of us don't even count how much we spend on everyday coffee, takeouts, our weekly groceries, and more. However, you most certainly notice how the prices have been going up since the beginning of the year. And yes, you better be watching that food budget, especially from now on. Your food expenses are probably the second most important line of expense after housing. And if it's actually third, with your second biggest line of expense being a personal vehicle, then we might have a little problem here and have some unpacking to do. But we will get back to that a little later. Anyways, I've done some calculations and was quite shocked to see how expensive it is to maintain a regular, healthy lifestyle if you're a single young person who likes to go out, just occasionally. I mean, when you're in your 20s, you can't really sit at home all the time. I'm sure many can relate to that. Personally, I get lots of pleasure from simply going out to my local coffee shop, getting my daily cappuccino with a muffin and all that jazz, despite being mostly a frugal guy when it comes to personal finance. I've made this video to show you how 7.7% inflation is affecting every single one of us in many areas, and how much money I spend on food per month, including cafes, groceries, occasional espressos and so on, all in one video, so you can get a sense of what's reasonable or maybe not so reasonable and compare it with your own budgeting. After all, it is a personal finance blog, so let me know in the comments below closer to the end of this video about your own numbers. How much do you spend on food, so we can come up with some kind of an average and I know how much you guys are spending. Besides, I will also give you some advice on how to save significantly more without sacrificing your social life by sitting at home 24/7 or by cutting your food budget. Full disclosure first, I don't have a car, which saves me a tremendous amount of money every month, especially with gas prices being up a whole 48% from the past year. Even though I was working remotely for almost 2 years, I recently had to go back to office, which by no means is a walking distance from my place. And yeah, Calgary isn't exactly Amsterdam in terms of urbanism, and the city infrastructure here has a long way to go, but as you can see, I still make do. Like any North American city, it's extremely car congested and vehicle oriented, but it's still possible for me to get to work by bike, which takes me about 30 to 40 minutes. If the weather is shite, I can always take public transit, which will take me about 45 to 50 minutes to get to work. Yeah, that's not always comfortable, but I would rather do that than spending $800 per month on insurance, gas, car payments and occasional maintenance. I mean, $800 is a lot of money to spend on a depreciating asset. Wouldn't you agree? Plus, biking gives me free exercise, lifts my mood a little bit and is generally fun, while on public transit I can at least get some work done or read something, which is not possible when I'm driving. Of course, if your work is really far and there is no way for you to get where you need to get without a car, then disregard all my points. In your case, it is a totally justifiable expense. Some might say, but Ren, how do you get your groceries? Well, it isn't in the 90s anymore. I get it delivered twice a week, and thankfully there are many great services with a low fee to do so. Plus, I've actually noticed to spend much less when I get my groceries from the apps compared to when I go to the actual store. And now we got to the biggest food expense for everybody: groceries. Let me shock you first. Grocery prices rose a ridiculous 9.7% in May compared to last year. Be my guest to round it up to 10% for a nice even number. Now, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a major factor in that uptick, as Ukraine is one of the world's leading suppliers of sunflower oil, and the war has caused shortages of the pension staple and many other things. I've made a separate video about that back in March, so if you'd like to know more about Putin's war with Ukraine, please check it out. In the meantime, despite an overall 9.7% increase, the cost of edible fats and oils also skyrocketed 30%. I'm not kidding, it is a real number. I definitely felt that reflected on my own grocery bill. Let's take a look at how much I spent overall for groceries in May and maybe in June as well. In 2021, I used to spend maybe $80 per week on exactly the same amount of produce that I'm getting now. Mostly the same items, brands, sweets and some little things. You get the gist. Even if I got a lot of stuff, it rarely exceeded $100 weekly for my groceries. Now I either have to get much less things or otherwise my bill easily gets to $140 weekly, and for me it's not super reasonable to spend that much on groceries per week. However, if you cook at home all the time and do not go out, and I know plenty of people just like that, then these numbers are totally in line with smart budgeting and do make sense. As I confessed earlier, I do like to go out quite often, and my regular brunch bill usually stays around $20. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I go out 4 times a week. So there's another $80 weekly on top of my grocery bill. Crazy, I know. So far we're having $160 weekly, if I'm being very modest on my groceries. There is also an occasional cappuccino and life's little pleasures like that, which is about $5 here and there during the week, but I usually like to get my espresso when dining in, so I don't have so much temptation to go out for a coffee. Now, even if I do get a cup of coffee to go, it is certainly not every day. 3 times a week would be a fair estimate, so feel free to add an additional $15 and we're getting mind-boggling $175 weekly or $700 monthly. And we're not done yet. There's one more line of expense. Now, $700 per month on your food expenses is not terrible and would have been an okay number if I also didn't like to take my friends out for lunch sometimes, or say to go to a bar with colleagues, which doesn't happen every week, more like bi-weekly thing, but usually costs me about $60 every time I go out like that. You decide if it's a reasonable number or not. I would be honest with you and say that usually I exceed 800 and it's more like 9 or 1,000, like a grand per month. I would say usually, because you never know when you unexpectedly get called out or you have a date and then it easily exceeds even a grand. But I would say 800, in my opinion, would be in line with a reasonable spending per month for a young person. But feel free to jump in and let me know your own estimate. I would appreciate that. Now, let's talk about the situation where I would have had a car, just for the sake of a number crunching. For any young, especially male drivers, insurance in Canada is sky high, about $300 to $400 per month. Then you pay about $300 a month on gas, unless you were a smart person who bought the Nissan Leaf and doesn't pay shit for gas, and another $100 on average for any kind of maintenance or parking and vehicle depreciation. While I'm saving over $800 on not having a vehicle, I can justify splurging a little bit extra on food. Not sure if I'm just trying to make myself feel better here, but if you are in a situation where you can sell your car and still have a comfortable living by getting to work by transit, I suggest doing just that. You can always get your groceries online and use car sharing service when you need to drive somewhere for fun or do some unexpected errand, and you will be able to save much more this way. Trust me. That was a pretty interesting topic. Not sure if it will be popular because, I mean, not everybody exactly sits and calculates how much he or she spends per month, but I would be very happy to hear your numbers in the comment section, and I'll see you next week.